In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from the bustling centers of civilization, something unusual happened. A large ship appeared out of nowhere, its sleek and shiny surface glowing faintly under the light of a nearby star. It was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. The ship was massive, with sharp edges and powerful engines that hummed softly as it moved through space. This was Earth's first battleship, the Odyssey *. For years, humanity had worked tirelessly to build this vessel, pouring all their knowledge and resources into creating something that could represent them among the stars. And now, after countless tests and preparations, it was finally here. At the helm of the Odyssey * stood Captain Daniel Carter, a man known for his calm and steady leadership. He wasn't the kind of person who shouted orders or sought attention. Instead, he led by example, earning the respect of everyone on board. Beside him was Lieutenant Rachel Monroe, a quick-thinking officer with a sharp mind. Her eyes scanned the screens in front of her, analyzing every detail about their surroundings. She was the kind of person who noticed things others might miss, and her skills had saved the crew more than once during their journey. As the Odyssey * approached a massive space station called Nexus Prime, whispers began to spread across the galaxy. Nexus Prime was a hub of activity, where traders, diplomats, and travelers from dozens of species gathered to exchange goods, information, and ideas. It was also a place where news traveled fast. When word reached the station that a strange new ship had entered their territory, curiosity turned to concern. Who were these newcomers? What did they want? And why did their ship look so intimidating? On board the Odyssey *, the crew prepared for their arrival. Engineer Alex Brooks double-checked the ship's systems, making sure everything was functioning perfectly. Communications Officer Emily Lane tested the radios, ensuring they could speak to whoever awaited them at the station. Meanwhile, Ambassador Laura Hayes reviewed her notes, ready to represent Earth in what might be the most important meeting of her life. When the Odyssey * finally docked at Nexus Prime, a crowd had already gathered. Dozens of alien species lined the observation decks, their eyes fixed on the massive human ship. Some looked curious, while others seemed uneasy. Among the crowd was Kale, a tall reptilian diplomat with scales that shimmered in the artificial light. His expression was hard to read, but his tone when he spoke made it clear he wasn't pleased to see these strangers. "Who are you?" he asked through a translator device, his voice cold and clipped. "Why have you come here?" Captain Carter stepped forward, his posture relaxed but confident. "We are from Earth," he said, his voice calm and clear. "We've come seeking friendship and understanding. We wish to learn about your people and share our own culture." Kale tilted his head, his slit-like eyes narrowing slightly. "Friendship?" he repeated as if the word tasted bitter. "Your arrival has caused quite a stir. Many here do not trust outsiders." Rachel watched the exchange carefully, her fingers resting lightly on the console beside her. She noticed how some of the other aliens exchanged nervous glances, while others whispered among themselves. Something didn't feel right. Was it just natural suspicion, or was there something more going on? As the initial greetings continued, tension lingered in the air. Despite Daniel's efforts to appear friendly and open, it was clear that not everyone at Nexus Prime welcomed Earth's arrival. Unknown to the crew of the Odyssey *, one faction, the Zenari Dominion, had already decided that humanity posed a threat. In secret meetings aboard the station, plans were being made to deal with this new and unpredictable force. Back on the Odyssey *, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She glanced at the screens again, studying the faces of the aliens they had encountered. There was something hidden beneath their polite smiles and cautious words. But what, and how dangerous would it be? For now, though, the crew focused on their mission. They had come to make contact, to show the galaxy that Earth was ready to take its place among the stars. Little did they know, Their arrival had already set events into motion that would change everything, for better or worse. As the crew of Asterisk, the Odyssey Asterisk, stepped off their ship and onto Nexus Prime, they were greeted by a mix of stares and whispers. The station was like nothing they had ever seen before. Bright lights illuminated massive halls filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Some walked on two legs, others floated above the ground, and a few even crawled along the walls. The air smelled faintly of metal and something sweet, though no one could quite identify it. Despite the strangeness of it all, Captain Daniel Carter kept his expression calm as he led his team deeper into the station. Ambassador Laura Hayes took the lead in speaking with the various alien representatives who approached them. Her job was to explain Earth's intentions and show that humanity meant no harm. She introduced herself with a warm smile, hoping to ease the tension she felt from the crowd. But not everyone was willing to listen. Many of the aliens seemed suspicious, asking pointed questions about Earth's technology and motives. One particularly gruff-looking creature with thick fur and sharp teeth demanded to know why humans had built such a powerful ship if they truly came in peace. Laura hesitated for a moment but answered honestly. "We built Asterisk, the Odyssey Asterisk, to protect ourselves," she said, her voice steady. "But also to explore and connect with other civilizations. We want to learn from you just as much as we hope you'll learn from us." Her words didn't seem to satisfy everyone. Kale, the reptilian diplomat, continued to watch the humans closely, his tail flicking impatiently behind him. He leaned forward slightly and asked, "And what will you do if we refuse to cooperate? Will your great ship destroy us?" Daniel stepped in before Laura could respond. "We're not here to threaten anyone," he said firmly. "We believe cooperation is better than conflict. But yes, we will defend ourselves if necessary." This answer only deepened the unease among the gathered aliens. Whispers spread quickly through the crowd, some accusing Earth of arrogance, while others speculated about hidden agendas. Rachel Monroe noticed how several of the delegates exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Something wasn't right. It felt like they were being judged, not just as visitors, but as potential enemies. While Laura worked to smooth things over, Lieutenant Rachel decided to take matters into her own hands. She quietly slipped away from the group and began observing the station more closely. As she wandered through the crowded halls, she noticed small details that worried her. A group of cloaked figures huddled near a corner, speaking in low tones. Another pair of aliens hurried past her, clutching strange devices that looked like weapons disguised as tools. Even the station's security guards seemed unusually tense, their eyes darting nervously toward Asterisk, the Odyssey Asterisk. Back aboard the ship, Engineer Alex Brooks was busy inspecting the docking bay where Asterisk, the Odyssey Asterisk, had landed. He wanted to make sure everything was secure, but he stumbled upon something unexpected. A faint trail of scorch marks on the floor, barely visible unless you looked closely. They weren't fresh, but they told a story. Someone had been testing high-powered equipment nearby, possibly weapons. Alex frowned and made a mental note to mention this to Rachel later. Meanwhile, Communications Officer Emily Lane stayed glued to her console, monitoring every signal coming in and out of the station. Most of the chatter was harmless, traders discussing deals or travelers sharing stories. But then she picked up something odd. An encrypted message, sent in short bursts, too fast for her to decode fully. Still, one word stood out: Odyssey. Whoever sent it knew they were being watched. By the time Rachel returned to the group, her suspicions had grown stronger. She pulled Daniel aside and shared what she'd seen. "I don't think we're welcome here," she said quietly. "Some of these people are planning something. I can feel it." Daniel nodded, his jaw tightening slightly. "We need to stay alert," he replied. "But we can't let our guard down publicly. If we act too defensive, it might confirm their fears." As the day wore on, the situation grew tenser. Laura managed to arrange a formal meeting with some of the station's leaders, hoping to clear the air. But even as she spoke, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and dangers alike. And now, Earth's battleship had arrived, bringing both hope and fear in equal measure, whether they liked it or not. The crew of Asterisk, the Odyssey Asterisk, was about to find out just how far some would go to keep humanity in its place, or eliminate it entirely. The next morning, the crew of Asterisk, the Odyssey Asterisk, gathered in the ship's meeting room to discuss what they had learned. Captain Daniel Carter stood at the head of the table, his expression serious but calm. "We need to figure out who we can trust here," he said, looking around at his team. "This station might seem neutral, but there are forces at play that we don't fully understand yet." Rachel Monroe nodded in agreement. She had spent most of the previous night going over her observations from Nexus Prime. "I think some of these factions are planning something against us," she said. "The way they're acting, it's like they're waiting for an excuse to attack." Engineer Alex Brooks added his findings about the scorch marks near the docking bay. "Whoever left those marks was testing something powerful," he explained. "It could have been a weapon. If someone wanted to sabotage us, they'd have plenty of chances while we're docked here." Communications Officer Emily Lane chimed in next. "I intercepted more of those encrypted messages last night," she said. "They keep mentioning our ship. I'm trying to decode them, but it's tricky. Whoever is sending them doesn't want us to know what they're saying." Ambassador Laura Hayes sighed heavily, rubbing her temples. "This isn't going well," she admitted. "Even during the formal meeting yesterday, I could tell some of the leaders were barely holding back their hostility. They kept asking about our weapons and how many ships Earth has. It's like they're sizing us up." Daniel leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "We can't afford to sit around and wait for them to make the first move," he said. "We need to gather more information, and fast. Rachel, I want you to keep observing the station. Look for anything unusual. Alex, see if you can find out where those scorch marks came from. Emily, keep working on those messages. And Laura, try to get closer to some of the delegates. Maybe one of them will slip up and reveal something useful." The team nodded and got to work. Rachel decided to explore the station's market district, a chaotic area filled with stalls selling everything from food to advanced technology. As she wandered through the crowded aisles, she noticed a group of cloaked figures huddled together near a stall selling strange-looking gadgets. One of them held a small device that glowed faintly, its surface covered in intricate patterns. Rachel recognized it immediately. It was a type of energy disruptor, capable of disabling the ship's systems. She pretended to browse nearby items while keeping an eye on the group. After a few minutes, one of the figures handed the device to another and whispered something before slipping away into the crowd. Rachel followed discreetly, careful not to draw attention. The figure led her to a dimly lit corner of the market, where two others were waiting. From their conversation, she picked up fragments of words: Zenari, fleet, and attack. Her heart raced as she realized they were talking about Asterisk, the Odyssey Asterisk. Back on the ship, Alex had discovered something disturbing. While inspecting the station's maintenance logs, accessible because Nexus Prime prided itself on transparency, he found records of repairs made to several ships docked nearby. One repair order mentioned damage caused by unauthorized testing of high-energy weapons. The timing matched the scorch marks Alex had seen earlier. Meanwhile, Emily finally managed to partially decode one of the encrypted messages. Though fragmented, it contained enough information to raise alarms. Earth vessel. Target priority. Strike when ready. When Rachel returned to the ship, she shared what she had overheard. "It's the Zenari Dominion," she said grimly. "They're planning to attack us, and based on what Alex found, they've already been testing their weapons here." Daniel clenched his fists, his mind racing. "We can't stay docked here any longer," he said. "But we also can't leave without knowing more. If we run, it'll look like we're weak. We need proof of their plans, not just for our sake, but to warn others in the galaxy." Laura hesitated. "If we confront them directly, it could start a war," she warned. "We're outnumbered here. We won't confront them yet," Daniel replied. "But we need to be ready. Rachel, Emily, keep digging. Alex, prepare the ship for departure. And Laura, keep playing diplomat as long as you can. We'll buy ourselves some time." As the crew dispersed to carry out their tasks, tension hung heavy in the air. They had come to Nexus Prime seeking peace, but now they faced the possibility of war. The galaxy trembled, not just because of Earth's arrival, but because of the choices humanity would soon be forced to make. The crew of the Odyssey worked quickly to prepare for the worst. Captain Daniel Carter knew they couldn't stay docked at Nexus Prime any longer, but leaving without a plan could make them an easy target. The Zenari Dominion was out there, watching and waiting. Every moment they stayed put felt like another step closer to disaster. Rachel Monroe and Emily Lane spent hours poring over the data they had gathered. Rachel's observations from the market district matched Emily's partial decryption of the encrypted messages. It was clear now. The Zenari were planning an ambush. They wanted to strike while the Odyssey was still vulnerable, docked at the station. But the question remained, when would the attack happen? Engineer Alex Brooks focused on getting the ship ready for departure. He ran diagnostics on every system, making sure the engines, shields, and weapons were functioning perfectly. "If we're going into a fight," he muttered to himself as he worked, "we'd better be ready." His hands moved swiftly over the control panels, adjusting settings and running final checks. By the time he finished, the Odyssey was primed to leave at a moment's notice. Ambassador Laura Hayes tried one last time to smooth things over with the station's leaders. She met with Kale, the reptilian diplomat, hoping to ease tensions, but Kel's demeanor had grown even colder than before. "Your presence here is unsettling," he said bluntly. "Many fear your technology. Some believe you are a threat that must be dealt with." Laura kept her voice steady. "We came in peace," she reminded him. "But if others choose to see us as enemies, we will defend ourselves." Kale didn't respond, his slit-like eyes narrowing slightly. Laura left the meeting feeling uneasy. It was obvious that some factions on Nexus Prime wouldn't lift a finger to help Earth if the Zenari attacked. As night fell, or what passed for night aboard the bustling station, alarms blared through the Odyssey Red warning lights flashed across the ship's corridors as Emily shouted from her station. "Captain, multiple ships just dropped out of hyperspace near the station. They're surrounding us." Daniel rushed to the bridge, his heart pounding. On the main screen, dozens of sleek, menacing vessels appeared, their hulls bristling with weapons. Each bore the insignia of the Zenari Dominion. A voice crackled over the comms, deep and commanding. "This is Commander Vorthak of the Zenari Dominion. Surrender your vessel immediately, or face destruction." The crew froze for a moment, the weight of the situation sinking in. They were outnumbered and surrounded, but surrender wasn't an option. Daniel took a deep breath and activated the ship's speakers. "This is Captain Daniel Carter of Earth's Battleship the Odyssey We will not surrender. If you attack, we will defend ourselves." Vorthak's reply came instantly. "Then you leave us no choice." Before the Zenari could fire, Daniel gave the order. "Alex, get us out of here. Rachel, bring up the experimental weapons systems. Let's show them what we're capable of." The engines roared to life as the Odyssey broke free from its docking clamps. The ship surged forward, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy blasts from the Zenari fleet. Rachel's fingers flew across her console, activating the ship's advanced weaponry. With a deafening roar, beams of pure energy shot out from the Odyssey striking several enemy ships. Explosions lit up the void of space as the Zenari scrambled to regroup. "Shields holding." Alex called out, his voice tense but steady. "They're targeting our engines." "Keep evading," Daniel ordered, gripping the armrests of his chair. "Emily, try to jam their communications. We need to disrupt their coordination." The battle raged on, each side trading blows. The Odyssey was smaller and faster than the bulky Zenari cruisers, allowing it to weave through their attacks. But the enemy had numbers on their side, and more ships continued to arrive. Despite the chaos, the crew worked together seamlessly. Rachel targeted key weak points on the enemy vessels, while Alex rerouted power to keep the shields intact. Emily managed to scramble the Zenari signals, causing confusion among their ranks. Slowly but surely, the Odyssey began to gain the upper hand. Finally, after what felt like hours, the Zenari fleet began to retreat. Their larger ships limped away, trailing smoke and debris. As the last cruiser disappeared into hyperspace, silence fell over the bridge of the Odyssey. The crew sat in stunned relief, their bodies heavy with exhaustion. Daniel let out a long breath. "Good work, everyone," he said quietly. "But this isn't over. The galaxy knows what we're capable of now. And not everyone will see that as a good thing." Outside, the stars twinkled silently, witnesses to humanity's first real test among the stars. For better or worse, Earth's arrival had changed everything. After the battle with the Zenari Dominion, the Odyssey limped away from Nexus Prime, its hull scorched and systems strained. The crew worked tirelessly to repair the damage while Captain Daniel Carter plotted their next move. They couldn't return to Earth. Not yet. The Zenari were still out there, and their attack proved that humanity wasn't welcome in the galaxy. But where could they go? And who could they trust? Rachel Monroe sat in the dimly lit observation deck, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. Her mind raced with questions. Why had the Zenari attacked so suddenly? What did they fear about Earth? She replayed the events in her head, trying to piece together clues. Then it hit her. The cloaked figures in the market district, the energy disruptor, the encrypted messages. There was more to this than just a random ambush. Someone had been planning this for a long time. Her thoughts were interrupted when Alex Brooks entered the room. "We found something," he said, his voice low but urgent. "While running scans on nearby space, we detected an old ship drifting near a dying star. It's not on any charts, and it looks abandoned." Daniel called an emergency meeting to discuss the discovery. "It could be nothing," he admitted, "but it might also hold answers. We need to check it out." The crew agreed, and the Odyssey changed course. As they approached the mysterious vessel, its battered frame came into view. It was ancient, its surface pockmarked with scars from battles long past. Whoever had built it was no longer around, or so it seemed. A team led by Daniel and Rachel boarded the derelict ship. The air inside was cold and stale, and the walls were covered in strange symbols etched into the metal. They moved cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. In the central chamber, they found what looked like a control room. Dust-covered consoles lined the walls, their screens flickering weakly to life as Alex connected his handheld device. "These systems are barely functioning," Alex muttered, typing furiously. "But I think I can pull some data." Moments later, fragments of information appeared on the screen. Logs, maps, and recordings told the story of a civilization wiped out centuries ago. They had been peaceful traders until the Zenari Dominion rose to power. The logs detailed brutal attacks, forced assimilation, and the destruction of entire worlds. One entry stood out. "The Dominions see all outsiders as threats. They will stop at nothing to maintain control." Rachel felt a chill run down her spine. "This is why they attacked us," she whispered. "They don't care if we're peaceful or not. To them, we're just another threat to eliminate." Back aboard the Odyssey the crew debated their next steps. Armed with proof of the Zenari's crimes, they knew they couldn't stay hidden forever. But taking on the Dominion alone was suicide. They needed allies, beings willing to stand against tyranny. Emily Lane suggested reaching out to the Torrent Collective, a loose alliance of rebel species resisting the Zenari's rule. They've been fighting back for years, she explained. If we show them this evidence, maybe they'll help us. Daniel nodded. It's risky, but it's our best shot. Let's send a message. Days later, the Odyssey rendezvous with a small fleet of Tauran ships near an asteroid field. General Renar, the leader of the collective, greeted them with cautious curiosity. His people were wary of outsiders, especially humans, but the evidence Daniel presented changed everything. You've shown us the truth, Reiner said after reviewing the logs. The Dominion must be stopped. We'll fight alongside you. But know this, war is coming. Are you ready? Daniel glanced at his crew. They were tired, battered, and far from home. But their resolve hadn't wavered. We didn't come this far to give up now, he replied. Together, we'll take the fight to them. As the Taurans prepared their forces, hope flickered within the crew of the Odyssey. For the first time, they weren't alone. The galaxy still trembled at Earth's arrival. But now, it wasn't just fear. It was the promise of change. With the Tauran collective as their allies, the crew of the Odyssey began preparing for the fight of their lives. The derelict ship's logs had revealed the Zenari Dominion's dark history, and now it was time to use that knowledge to strike back. But first, they needed to ensure the Odyssey was ready for whatever lay ahead. Engineer Alex Brooks worked around the clock alongside Chief Engineer Ben Foster, integrating alien technology scavenged from the derelict ship into the Odyssey's systems. The upgrades were risky. Some of the components were ancient and poorly understood, but they couldn't afford to hesitate. We're pushing the ship beyond its limits, Alex muttered as he welded a new power conduit into place. But if we don't, we won't stand a chance. Rachel Monroe spent hours analyzing battle strategies with Lieutenant Emily Lane. Together, they studied the movements of the Zenari fleet, looking for weaknesses. Rachel sketched out plans on a holographic display, marking key points where the enemy might be vulnerable. Their fortress world, Corvallis, is the heart of their operations, she explained. If we can hit them there, we might cripple their command structure. Ambassador Laura Hayes struggled with her role in the growing conflict. She had come to Nexus Prime hoping to build bridges, not wage war. But now, diplomacy felt like a distant dream. Sitting alone in her quarters, she reviewed the evidence they had gathered about the Zenari's atrocities. Images of destroyed planets and enslaved populations filled her screen. Her hands trembled slightly as she closed the files. This isn't what I signed up for, she whispered to herself. Yet deep down, she knew there was no turning back. Captain Daniel Carter called a meeting to finalize their plan. Standing before his crew, he laid out the mission: infiltrate Corvallis, disable its central command center, and broadcast the truth about the Zenari Dominion to the galaxy. It was a bold move, one that carried immense risk. Corvallis is heavily fortified, Daniel admitted, but we have surprise on our side. And the Taurans. If we succeed, we'll expose the Dominion for what they are. The Tauran fleet arrived 2 days later, their ships sleek and battle-scarred. General Renar greeted Daniel with a firm nod. Your bravery has earned our trust, he said. But remember this, the Zenari will fight to the death to protect Corvallis. We must be ready. As preparations continued, tensions ran high aboard the Odyssey. The crew worked tirelessly, knowing failure wasn't an option. Morale dipped at times, especially when reminders of how far they were from Earth weighed heavily on everyone's minds. But Daniel made sure to remind them why they were fighting, not just for survival, but for freedom. We didn't come here to conquer or destroy, he told them during one particularly grueling shift. We came to show the galaxy that humanity stands against tyranny. That's worth every sacrifice. Finally, the day of the assault arrived. The combined fleet gathered near a cluster of asteroids, using the rocky formations as cover. From there, they would launch a surprise attack on Corvallis. As the Odyssey slipped into position, cloaked by Tauran stealth technology, The crew braced themselves for what was to come. Rachel stood beside Daniel on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the main screen. Ahead, Corvus loomed, a massive planet surrounded by layers of orbital defenses. Gun turrets bristled along its surface, and squadrons of Zenari fighters patrolled the skies. "It looks impossible," she murmured. "Nothing's impossible," Daniel replied firmly. "Not if we believe in each other." Moments later, the order came through. The first wave of Tauran ships broke formation, drawing the attention of the Zenari forces. Explosions lit up the darkness as the battle began. Amidst the chaos, the Odyssey activated its cloak and slipped past the outer defenses, heading straight for the planet's surface. Below, the ground team prepared to disembark. Daniel, Rachel, and Alex suited up, checking their gear one last time. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew they weren't alone. Behind them stood the entire crew of the Odyssey and beyond that, the Tauran Collective. For the first time since leaving Earth, humanity wasn't facing the galaxy's challenges by itself. As the ramp lowered and the cold air of Corvus rushed in, Daniel took a deep breath. "Let's finish this," he said. And with that, they stepped into the unknown, ready to change the course of history, or die trying. The ground team of the Odyssey moved quickly across the surface of Corvus, their footsteps muffled by the thick ash that covered the ground. The air was heavy with smoke, and the sky above glowed a dull red from the constant explosions in orbit. Captain Daniel Carter led the way, his rifle at the ready, while Rachel Monroe and Alex Brooks followed closely behind. Their mission was clear: infiltrate the Central Command Center, disable it, and broadcast the evidence of the Zenari Dominion's crimes to the galaxy. The journey wasn't easy. Corvus was a fortress world, designed to withstand any attack. Automated turrets scanned the area constantly, and patrols of Zenari soldiers roamed the streets. The team relied on stealth, sticking to shadows, and using cloaking devices provided by the Taurans. Every step felt like a gamble, but they couldn't afford to hesitate. As they approached the command center, Rachel spotted a group of Zenari guards stationed near the entrance. She signaled for the others to stop and crouched behind a pile of rubble. "There are too many of them," she whispered. "We'll never get past without being seen." Daniel nodded, his mind racing. "We'll have to create a distraction," he said. "Alex, can you rig something to draw their attention?" Alex glanced around, spotting a nearby power generator. "I can overload it," he replied. "It'll cause a big enough explosion to pull them away, but we'll only have a few minutes before backup arrives." "Do it," Daniel ordered. Alex crept toward the generator, his movements slow and deliberate. He planted a small charge and retreated to join the others. Moments later, a loud boom echoed through the area, sending flames and debris into the air. The guards shouted in alarm, rushing toward the source of the explosion. The path to the command center was clear, for now. Inside, the building was eerily quiet. The walls were lined with glowing panels, casting an unnatural light over everything. Rachel accessed a terminal, her fingers flying over the keys as she hacked into the system. "I'm almost in," she said, her voice tense. "Just a little longer." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, and the sound of boots echoed in the distance. The Zenari had realized what was happening. "They're coming," Alex warned, gripping his weapon tightly. "We're not done yet," Daniel shouted. "Rachel, keep going. Alex and I will hold them off." Alex set up defensive positions near the door, using crates and debris as cover. When the first wave of Zenari soldiers appeared, he opened fire, his shots precise and deadly. Daniel joined him, taking down enemies with calm efficiency. The narrow hallway became a battlefield, filled with smoke and the sharp crack of gunfire. Back at the terminal, Rachel ignored the chaos around her, focusing on the task at hand. Her hands trembled slightly, but she didn't stop. Finally, the screen blinked and a message appeared. Access granted. She quickly uploaded the evidence they had gathered. The logs from the derelict ship, recordings of the Zenari's atrocities, and images of destroyed worlds. Then she activated the broadcast signal, sending the information out to every corner of the galaxy. "It's done," she yelled. "Let's go." But escaping wouldn't be easy. Reinforcements poured into the hallway, pinning Daniel and Alex down. Bullets ricocheted off the walls, and the air grew thick with heat and smoke. Just as it seemed they were about to be overwhelmed, a deafening roar shook the building. Through the chaos, they heard the unmistakable sound of Tauran fighters breaking through the atmosphere. General Renar's voice crackled over their comms. "Hold on. We're bringing the fight to you." Explosions rocked the command center as Tauran ships targeted the facility, creating a path for the ground team to escape. Daniel grabbed Rachel's arm, pulling her toward the exit. "Move," he shouted. Alex covered their retreat, firing until his weapon clicked empty. Together, they sprinted toward the landing zone, dodging falling debris and enemy fire. When they reached the extraction point, a Tauran transport hovered nearby, its ramp already lowered. The team climbed aboard just as more Zenari forces arrived. As the transport lifted off, Daniel looked back at the burning command center. The mission had been costly, but it was a victory, one that would change the galaxy forever. In orbit, the combined fleet fought fiercely, pushing the Zenari forces back. For the first time, the Dominion's grip on the galaxy began to weaken. And somewhere, far away, the truth about their crimes spread like wildfire, sparking hope among those who had suffered under their rule. The battle for Corvallis was over, but the cost weighed heavily on everyone. The Tauran fleet had suffered significant losses, their ships battered and scarred from the fierce fighting. Aboard Asterisk, the Odyssey Asterisk, the crew gathered in silence as Captain Daniel Carter addressed them. His voice was steady, but there was no hiding the exhaustion etched into his face. "We did what we came here to do," he said. "The galaxy knows the truth now. But this isn't the end. It's just the beginning." Rachel Monroe sat quietly in a corner of the bridge, her mind replaying the chaos of the past hours. She had seen things she couldn't unsee: the destruction, the loss of life, the sheer brutality of war. Yet, amidst it all, she felt a strange sense of pride. Humanity hadn't backed down. They had stood alongside the Taurans and proven that Earth was more than just a distant planet. It was a force to be reckoned with. Engineer Alex Brooks worked tirelessly to repair the damage sustained during the assault. The ship's systems were strained, its hull patched with whatever materials they could scavenge. "She's holding together," he muttered to himself as he welded another section of the outer plating. "But she needs time. We all need time." Ambassador Laura Hayes reflected on the mission as she stared out at the stars. Her role had shifted from diplomacy to survival, and she wasn't sure how to feel about it. The evidence they had broadcasted would ripple through the galaxy, exposing the Zenari Dominion's crimes. But would it bring peace, or would it spark even more conflict? For now, she focused on the small victories, the lives saved, the hope ignited among those who had lived under oppression. In the aftermath of the attack, the Zenari forces retreated, their once unshakable confidence shaken. General Renar contacted Asterisk, the Odyssey Asterisk, one last time before parting ways. "You've struck a blow against tyranny," he said, "but the Dominion will not fall easily. Stay vigilant, and know that you have allies in us." As the Tauran fleet disappeared into the void, Asterisk, the Odyssey Asterisk, set course for home. The journey would take months, but the crew didn't mind. They needed time to heal, to process everything they had been through. Along the way, messages began pouring in from across the galaxy. Some were words of gratitude, others offers of friendship or trade. Humanity was no longer an unknown entity. It was recognized, respected, and, in some cases, feared. One message stood out among the rest. It came from a coalition of smaller species who had long suffered under the Zenari's rule. "Your courage has inspired us." The message read, We will rise together and build a new future, a future where no one lives in fear. Daniel shared the message with the crew, his lips curving into a faint smile. This is why we fought, he said, not for glory, but for change. As the ship drifted through space, Rachel joined Daniel on the observation deck. Together, they gazed out at the endless expanse of stars. "Do you think it'll work?" she asked softly. "Can we really make a difference?" Daniel hesitated before answering. "I don't know," he admitted. "But if we don't try, nothing will ever change. We've shown the galaxy what humanity is capable of, not just our strength, but our determination to stand up for what's right." The road ahead wouldn't be easy. The Zenari Dominion still existed, wounded but not defeated. Other factions might see Earth's rise as a threat, leading to new challenges and conflicts. But for now, the trembling that had gripped the galaxy upon Asterisk, the Odyssey's Asterisk arrival had shifted. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was uncertainty, curiosity, and perhaps even hope. When Earth finally came into view, glowing blue and green against the blackness of space, the crew gathered on the bridge to watch. Their home planet looked small compared to the vastness of the universe, yet it felt bigger than ever. They had ventured into the unknown and returned stronger, wiser, and united. For better or worse, humanity's place in the galaxy was secured. And though the battles ahead would test them in ways they couldn't imagine, one thing was certain: Earth's arrival had changed everything. As the Odyssey approached Earth, the crew felt a mix of emotions they couldn't quite put into words. They had left their home planet unsure of what awaited them in the stars, and now they were returning as heroes and survivors. The ship's sensors picked up signals from ground control, welcoming them back with cheers and applause. For the first time in months, smiles broke out across the faces of the crew. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the glowing orb outside the viewport. "We've come a long way," he said softly, almost to himself. He turned to Rachel Monroe, who was standing nearby. "Do you think anyone back home understands what we've been through?" Rachel shrugged, her expression thoughtful. "Probably not," she admitted. "But maybe that's okay. All they need to know is that we made it back, and that we stood our ground." When the ship touched down at the spaceport, a crowd had gathered to greet them. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, and families waved signs with the names of loved ones aboard. It was overwhelming but heartwarming. The crew stepped off Asterisk, the Odyssey Asterisk one by one, greeted by thunderous applause. Daniel led the way, followed closely by Rachel, Alex Brooks, Emily Lane, and Ambassador Laura Hayes. Each of them carried the weight of their journey, not just in their tired bodies, but in their hearts. The president of Earth's Global Council met them on the tarmac, shaking hands and thanking them for their bravery. "You've shown the galaxy what humanity is capable of," he said, his voice filled with pride. "And you've given us a chance to stand among the stars as equals." Later that evening, a formal ceremony was held to honor the crew. Speeches were made, medals were awarded, and stories of their adventures spread like wildfire across news outlets worldwide. But despite the celebration, some members of the crew found it hard to enjoy. Alex spent most of the night tinkering with tools in a quiet corner, unable to relax. Emily sat alone at a table, scrolling through messages from people she barely knew, feeling disconnected from the fanfare. And Laura, though smiling for the cameras, couldn't shake the memories of the lives lost during their mission. Daniel noticed the strain on his team and pulled them aside after the event. "This isn't over," he reminded them gently. "We've started something big, something that will shape Earth's future. But none of us has to carry this burden alone. We're in this together." Over the following weeks, life began to settle into a new normal. Engineers worked around the clock to repair and upgrade Asterisk, the Odyssey Asterisk, preparing it for whatever challenges lay ahead. Scientists studied the data brought back from Corvallis, learning more about alien technology and how it could benefit humanity. Diplomats like Laura reached out to the species who had contacted them during their journey, laying the groundwork for alliances and trade agreements. But the galaxy wasn't waiting patiently. Rumors reached Earth that the Zenari Dominion was regrouping, rebuilding its forces in secret. Other factions, emboldened by the evidence broadcasted from Corvallis, began resisting the Dominion openly. The balance of power was shifting, but it was fragile, unpredictable. One night, Daniel stood on the balcony of his temporary quarters, staring up at the stars. Rachel joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Thinking about going back out there?" she asked, handing him one of the cups. He nodded slowly. "I think we'll have to," he replied. "The galaxy isn't ready to leave us alone, and honestly, I don't think we're ready to stop exploring." Rachel smiled faintly. "You really believe that, don't you? That we can keep doing this, facing whatever comes next?" "I do," Daniel said firmly. "Because if we don't, who will? Humanity didn't build the Odyssey just to sit on the sidelines. We're part of something bigger now. And no matter how scary it gets, I think we're ready." As they stood there, sipping their coffee under the vast night sky, the truth sank in. Earth's arrival in the galaxy hadn't just changed the universe, it had changed them too. They were no longer strangers to the stars. They belonged here, alongside all the wonders and dangers the cosmos held. Whatever came next, they would face it together.